Hi everyone, today we're going to learn how to address both US and international envelopes. Specifically, we're going to be covering France, Britain, Canada, Poland, and China. But don't worry, most international addresses will fall under one of these categories. If you're looking for any other help with shipping and mailing, please hit that subscribe button because we have more videos on the way. To address an envelope, the first thing you need is, of course, an envelope to write with. Any size works. And a pen to write that address with. The next thing you guys need are stamps. You can go to your local post office or the USPS website and buy individual stamps, sheets of 20 like this, or a whole roll of 100 stamps. I would go with Forever USA stamps because even if the postage goes up, you won't have to pay any additional charge when you use these Forever USA stamps. If you're shipping or mailing internationally, you're going to be needing global stamps, which you can also find at your local post office or USPS website. Now that you have everything you need, let's jump to addressing an envelope for US mail. The first thing you need to do is write the sender's name, or your name if you're the sender, in the top left corner. So you're going to start with your first name and your last name on the first line. Then, for the second line, write your street address. This includes the number of your house, the street name, and your apartment number. For the last line, put either your city, town, or your neighborhood, followed by a comma. After that, write the initials for your state in capital letters and then your 5-digit zip code. It's really important that you write your correct address, because if you mess up the address of the person you're sending it to as well, then that letter is going to get lost in the mail. So make sure you write your correct address so that if anything happens, the letter can be sent back to you, and so that the person you're sending it to can also write you back. In the middle of the envelope is where you'll be writing the address for the person you're sending it to, so right here. I would write this in larger letters so that it's easier to read. This address will follow the same pattern as your address, starting with the person's first and last name, then their street address, followed by their apartment number, then their city name, the state initials, and finally, the zip code. If you happen to be sending a letter to someone and for some reason don't want them to know your address, you can put their address in both the top left and the middle of the envelope so that no matter what, it is going to get to them. Finally, the stamp goes in the top right-hand corner. Next, we'll be looking at how to address an envelope to someone serving in the US military. On the first line, you should write the person's full name, including their middle initial. You can choose whether or not to include the rank for this person's name. On the second line, put the unit, CMR or PC, along with the corresponding number. Next to that, write their assigned box number. On the third line, you'll be starting with the 3-letter code for what type of installation this person is at. There's APO, that stands for Army and Air Force, FPO for Ships and Navy installations, and DPO for U.S. embassies overseas. After that, write in the 2-letter state. AA is for Armed Forces America, AE for Armed Forces Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and AP for Armed Forces Pacific. Lastly, put the zip code. Military zip codes will start with either a 0 or a 9. Next, we'll be looking at how to write international addresses. We recommend that you guys do 3 things. First, write everything in capital letters so that the address can be read clearly. Second, keep your address to a maximum of 5 lines. And third, write in blue or black ink. And if you're tech savvy, you can type up your addresses on the computer, print them out, cut them out, put them on the envelope, and stick them to it with clear tape. If the address you're writing isn't in English, and let's say is in Arabic, Cyrillic, or in characters, you need to provide the English translation. And if not, you need to make sure you write any of the foreign words in Roman characters. The standard format of an international address is kind of similar to the American format. The first line is the person's full name. The second line is usually the street address or the P.O. box number. The third line includes the city or town name, followed by a comma, then the subdivision, which is a province, state, or county. After that, put a comma and then the postal code. Now in some countries for this third line, the postal code would go first. So you need to be sure to check that country's format to make sure you're putting the postal code in the right place. The last part of the international address is the fourth line, where you will write the country. This has to be capitalized no matter what. For your address, you will also have to write the country underneath your normal 3-line address. Now let's move on to some specific examples. We'll start with Canada. Canadian addresses can be written in both French and English. The first line is the person's full name. The second line is the person's house number and street address. The third line starts with the city or town name, and then, in capital letters, the 2-letter abbreviation for the province. Next to that goes the postal code. On the fourth line, using capital letters, write Canada in English. Like Canada, British addresses are very similar to American addresses. It starts with a person's name. Then, on the second line, the street address. The third line will have the city or town name. Sometimes that's followed by the name of their county and then the postal code. On the fourth line, write England in capital letters. I mentioned before how some international addresses put their postal code at the front of the third line. The French address does exactly that, so let's take a look at what that looks like. The first line has the person's name. On the second line, write their street address. Now for this third line, start with the postal code, and then you write the city or town name. And like the other examples, write France in capital letters on the fourth line. Other European addresses can be a little bit more complicated, so make sure you check that country's specific formalities when addressing the envelope. Let's take a look at Poland for an example. The first line is the person's full name. The second line is where things get a little complicated. You're going to start with UL or AL followed by a period. UL stands for Ulica, which means street, and AL stands for Aleja, which means avenue in Polish. Then, write the name of the street. After that, include the number of the street, which is then followed by a slash and the number of the house. If you're sending mail to a flat or apartment, replace the slash with a lowercase m and period. On the third line, you'll start with a postal code and then the city. Lastly, write Poland in capital letters on the fourth line. Finally, we'll be looking at how to write Chinese addresses. These addresses can be pretty complicated compared to American ones, but we can narrow it down to just 5 lines. The first line, you start with a person's full name. The second line should be either the name of the company or the name of the building. The third line starts with the street address, which includes the number of the apartment or house. Put a comma and then write the district name. The fourth line starts with the postal code, followed by the province. Finally, on the fifth line, write China in all capital letters. So I hope you learned how to address envelopes for the US and international mailing, and that you have a lot of fun sending letters to your friends both in the US and abroad. If you have any more questions on shipping and mailing, please leave a comment below or check out our other how-to videos. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe and stay tuned for more content.